This is the Workplace Ninja podcast, coming to you live from our summit in Baden with highlights, insights, and interviews.
Hello, good morning still. Oh no, it's the afternoon. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Yeah,
Depending on the time zone, right?
yeah, that's always depending, and we will publish it afterwards. So definitely, when you listen, it can be night that way. But we're back with some sort of new people on the table, doing some stuff. The last thing we did was about security, but we turned that around. We do something like WinGet, OSD deployment, some third-party apps. So let's see what we can do in 25 minutes or so.
Right. So these are not just people; they are our good friends. We've known each other for a long time, and fellow MVPs. And yeah.
Who do we have on the table, Hargit?
Introduce yourself. Go for it.
David Segura, MVP in Cloud and Data Center Management, which is really just PowerShell and OS deployment person.
Yep.
I'm Bryan.
My name is Bryan Dam. I guess I'm an MVP in Enterprise Mobility, I think we still call it that. I don't know
Yeah, for now.
That's what it's called? I don't know. I'm a software engineer at Patch My PC. Actually, my title is Patch Lover Extraordinaire. And you said earlier, we're transitioning to security. I would put forth that all patching is security. It's operational security.
Very true.
We are totally talking about security. Right?
Yeah, we the last conversation was with Sergey Chubarov and Michael Warbeck. They mentioned at the end of the recording that we did, they mentioned patching is one of the important things, because most of organizations are still have not a lack of features, but a lack of support when realizing the basic stuff. And patching is one of the things that we need to do.
You know,
I don't know that I'm coining the term, but I have some good friends in the security industry, and they say that same thing, right? So many successful attacks are from operational failures in terms of just patching. And
right.
So I always call the IT team, we're your operational security team. We're the guys that have to deploy things and actually fix vulnerabilities, which doesn't negate the need to monitor and and protect the network and all other things. But you could have a very strong network and a really poorly patched environment, and you're still going to get hacked.
Yeah, when looking at applications, when deploying a modern managed desktop, for example, how hard is it to get all the applications updated in a good way?
Yeah.
Short question.
No. The struggle is real. I would say, Microsoft has tried numerous different iterations on how do we get third-party patching going, all the way back to System Center. So System Center, they built System Center Update Publisher, or SCUP, and the idea was Microsoft. What they were trying to do at that time was get the vendors. Microsoft has been trying for years, decades, to get vendors to publish do that work, to give them that content, and so that was the whole idea of SCUP and publishers, and then that's what you're seeing with WinGet and with the Microsoft Store and those integrations. We're on a 20-year journey of Microsoft trying to figure out how do we get the vendors to provide this data, and historically software vendors have not done that. Anyone who's in IT and has deployed apps know often it's a struggle just to get a meaningful silent installer that's documented out of a vendor, to get them to also then take a bunch of extra steps to publish it to somewhere else can be a struggle.
And publish it quick too.
Yeah.
It's not like you got vulnerabilities now that you wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks before you deploy. The damage is done now. You gotta nip that in the butt, to say right away. So,
well, isn't security about your network is only as secure as the weakest link? But the same with what Bryan was saying about apps. You could have vendors that are on top of all of their apps, but if you have that one app that is weak, slow, and not supporting SCUP and not supporting publishing updates in a timely manner, it all falls apart, and it is a challenge. And I don't think it'll ever be solved. I think the proper solution is you have to call out, identify who isn't, playing the game right, and take them out.
I think I think we what we are doing as IT pros and stuff is really pushing and educating. Like at the end of the day, it's also educating, IT admins. Where the old mindset was set it and forget it. You deploy an app, it's there, you use it, whatever.
Right.
5 years go by, right? Things like that, until a user or someone says, hey, my this app, now is prompting me, there's a download for it or something like that, or it doesn't do what I need to do. Oh yeah, there's 10 revisions of that app. Go ahead and uninstall and reinstall, kind of a thing. But we need to really, yes, you touched upon, the weakest link, and I've seen where people focus so much on the OS. It's important, right? OS and stuff like that. You got to harden that. You got to harden the hardware and all that fun stuff. But then they forget the application side, and that's how threat actors, bad actors come in.
And if we look at applications, WinGet, one of your the topics of the session that you have done.
Mm-hmm.
Can WinGet or do WinGet play a role in that area? What is it and how can it help?
I think what Bryan touched upon is there's a challenge, and I think WinGet is Patch My PC has done a phenomenal job of taking the smaller apps and handling that for their customers. And I think WinGet is another method, another approach to help bridge that gap to keep your apps updated. But it's still going to require the administrators to enforce some type of policy that says, our apps have to be on the latest version. I don't think we'll ever get there, as long as you've got organizations that, we've tested our tools on this version of an app and we don't want to move. And we see that a lot with CAD. They stay on a specific driver. And that includes vulnerabilities for that specific driver or revision. So I think it will always be a challenge.
Yeah. And
so I want to speak to a little bit to WinGet's role in all of this. And it's also clear to understand, sorry to go full Jason Sandys on you, but there's WinGet and there's Windows Package Manager. So WinGet is the command line that most people that people are familiar with and are aware with. But what's important actually, WinGet is really just the binary. And so even Intune, the Intune management agent, what's IME stand for? Intune management extension. That's it.
Management
Intune
extension.
management extension, right? Sorry, we have internal arguments about agent versus extension at my work. It uses WinGet, you will see that because it's using the DLL. So WinGet is the code that talks to the Windows Package Manager repository, so WPM. So Windows Package Manager is a GitHub repo that anybody in the world can submit their packages to. And so when I was talking earlier about how Microsoft is on they're in the 20th year, we're trying to figure out how do we get vendors to submit. We realize that not every vendor is going to. And so Windows Package Manager and then the WinGet binaries that use it are Microsoft's attempt to crowdsource that information. So WinGet or Windows Package Manager is crowdsourcing third-party patching metadata, and so anybody in the world can submit any package, and it doesn't mean everything that gets submitted by everybody makes it into there. That Microsoft has its own built-in security processes. So you submit something, and they're going to download it. They're going to subject it to every antivirus that they possibly can, and they have a whole bunch of static analysis tools to try and weed out malicious packages in Windows Package Manager. But the idea is that it's not official. It's not the vendors that are necessarily putting it in WinGet or Windows Package Manager. That's what the store is for. So Microsoft's store, which integrates with Intune as well now, that is intended for actual official vendors. So Adobe should be the only one who's allowed to publish Adobe products into the store. And both of those, and so both the store and WinGet can service both the store and the Windows Package Manager, and so that's combining those two.
It's all about trust.
Yeah.
Do I trust the store or the what is it called? Where
Windows
it came
Package
from?
Manager.
Yeah, do I
WPN.
trust
It's also
the source?
the people who submit to WinGet. You know,
Yeah.
when you do submit an app, you know, one of the questions, you know, one of the things they look at is this the first time this person has submitted, or
Right.
has this person successfully submitted multiple applications? Okay, we kind of trust this person a little more, and those people tend to be more involved with the community, the WinGet community.
Yeah. We talked right up front about WinGet before we start, and you mentioned something with Google using the same URL, and when it published a new version, so update management within WinGet, that could be an issue in some cases.
Yeah, there is a lag there, and the challenge is we were talking about Google Chrome Enterprise. There's a download URL that doesn't change; it's static, and that's so you can always get the latest version whenever Google mints it. But the problem is WinGet relies on a hash, and the URL doesn't change, but the download file may change, and so when it comes down and WinGet is looking at the old hash, comparing it to this new file that was just published 2 minutes ago, it's not going to sync up. It's going to fail the install, and that's one of the challenges I've seen. Sometimes it takes a couple hours, sometimes it takes a couple days before WinGet actually gets the latest hash and version up to date in the repo.
I've never looked like who's actually publishing in Windows Package Manager for Google. Like, is it community members, or like you haven't looked either? That's fine.
I can't recall. I know I've looked it up, and there have been threads, comments about, hey, Google's updated. Can we?
But it's still all about the trust, about the trust of the source.
Right.
Do
Yes,
you
totally.
trust the source?
Yeah.
Can you trust the source? And if it isn't that possible that you can trust, then it's probably hard to use that in an enterprise environment, for example.
Trust, and is it secured? Is it,
Yeah.
Are there some malicious code built into some of these? You never know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we are with this. So
Well, I don't think what we see in WinGet is what we need to worry about.
No.
It's the individual apps, the unique apps that are created and hosted on GitHub that don't see updates that somebody in some organization has downloaded for their usage, and it's not tested, it's not vetted. It probably serves one purpose.
Right.
I mean, you can get apps from anywhere. It doesn't mean there's going to be a mechanism for every single app on your device. I think it's a game we're going to be chasing. I don't think we'll win, but we'll get pretty close.
Yeah. To move a little bit forward, application management is hard. We have vendors that help in the Microsoft ecosystem to realize that Microsoft is working with WinGet, on the new store, and other things are ongoing there. So I think that will be a challenge in the next year or so to have a third party. Microsoft is doing stuff and so on and so on. But before we can manage applications, we need to enroll a system. And we had a short talk with Thomas Kurt was over here, and he said, OSD deployment, I don't need it. I do autopilot. So, David, you have OSD in the cloud.
Yes.
David's the OSD guy.
Yeah, but do we still need that?
It's funny when autopilot first was introduced. That's always been the argument. Okay, we don't need OS deployment anymore. We have autopilot now, and there are some people who just don't see there are specific use cases.
I know.
For example, if I swap out your hard drive with a brand new one and give it back to you, and I tell you, okay, make autopilot rebuild your machine, it won't do that. Autopilot is a way to get a vanilla clean install into an enterprise, into Intune, into an organization with policy and things like that. So you have to start with something. You have to start with an OS. There are requirements, and if you don't have an OS, that's OS deployment. You just simplify and just get an OS on there, and then you can let autopilot take over.
It's an extra. Before you can use autopilot, you need an OS on a physical device, and if you switch the hard drive, for example, there is nothing. Then you can use a Cloud Pixie, and then you can boot into Cloud OS. But it can be neither. Local OSD deployment.
That's a given, right? You always need a base, right? Without an OS, there's no point, turning on the machine, right? But people have been used to this. Again, this concept going back, like you get your machines. Like I used to work in a university, right? We would get 50, 60, hundreds of machines, and they'll go into like this warehouse kind of a some IT folks are managing it, unboxing it, right? It came with the OS. It came with what we want, but they want to put in their custom images because they want to add applications and whatever else. Do the imaging process, close it, shut it down, then ship it back to the users. And now we're in this whole hybrid scenario, right? Where everybody's remote, things like that. So that concept just doesn't work. And also, like, I think a lot of times people were re-imaging brand new machines only for the sake of switching the SKU, right? It came with Pro, but they want to put Enterprise, but they don't realize that all you need to do is apply the license, and it flips it.
Well, I got two scenarios for you. The first one, Hyper-V, you create a new virtual machine. How do you autopilot that? You need an OS, okay, in its pure form. And I use OSDCloud, which is a tool I developed to pull the OS from Microsoft, use it to put on the OS, and then I can autopilot and get it into Intune. The second is, I've worked for, a large organization before, working for HP, and sometimes we would get pallets of computers, and maybe they had Windows 11, but we weren't ready to move to Windows 11, so re-image, put Windows 10 on it. Autopilot can't, roll you back to Windows 10.
Still not.
And you better not be rolling back to Windows 10 at this point.
Not to go too far back, but and I don't want to throw Thomas or anyone else under the bus, but when I hear someone say something like, I don't need OSD anymore, I can't help but question, like, did you ever do end user support of hardware? Because users are monsters when it comes to hardware. I've never seen, especially like in education, I've never seen people so small destroy things with such regularity. If you just ship everything off to HP and let them deal with it, that's fine. But at larger orgs, like my org where I worked at scale, we were our own HP. We were certified HP technicians because we were just at that scale. We fixed our own stuff. We're going to need to lay down an OS.
So here's where OSDCloud really shines, and hopefully you never have to use it for this method, but disaster recovery, ransomware, okay? You want a clean OS, but can you trust your CM servers? Can you trust your MDT? Can you trust your images? And if you're pulling the OS straight from Microsoft, everything from the cloud, you from the OEMs, you're pulling the drivers, you can get back to a clean system.
And some of the awesome OSD stuff we know, like Johan, Ardmark, that's where a lot of some of that came from. It's like, they worked at an org where that was their job, like to go into disaster recovery scenarios. And the question is, how do you re-image 10,000 boxes so all of those like wall of fire demos that they do, like, okay, sometimes I'm always like, well, I will never need that. I will, or
hopefully.
Yeah, I will hopefully never need that. But absolutely every year there's orgs around the world. They're like, how do we re-image every single device? Yeah. We have to burn it all down and start from scratch.
Yeah.
Good luck doing that with, and all you got is autopilot.
Yeah, and you made a good point. Like, even backups are destroyed, right? They're corrupted and stuff like that because of that.
You just don't know. And that, we talked about security earlier, and you get hit by ransomware. I mean, a clean OS, that's part of keeping secure. Sometimes you need that.
What I see in general, education companies, for example, using SCCM, doing OSD deployments because of students that are hitting in that machines, and
they're monsters.
Yeah, and even OSD in the cloud probably can help, but they need a local OSD. Probably they can use OSDCloud, but they need extra things, not OSD, but also applications update management and so on. So it's a combination of things, in my opinion, and with OSD in the cloud, definitely with autopilot. If you extend that one, for certain scenarios, but not only for a backup and recovery scenario, but also when you have, what you say, if you have a large amount of laptops or desktops that you need to roll out, it could be helpful if you have an OSD that is clean without everything from the vendor, for example. That could help. And with autopilot, you can extend it into another workplace. And it was Thomas was joking. I was asking him.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. I'm not throwing anyone
no.
under the bus. It's not the first time I've heard that. It's not the first time you've heard that either, right? Like OSD is dead. I was like, well, I'm gonna.
It's a craft.
I'm gonna disagree with it. It will change. I mean, even to what you're talking about, right? Like when I started. I mean, I think, what did I use? Clonezilla was like my first.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know, right? Clonezilla. That was my intro into like, how
it
do
is
you...
Semantic Ghost. And
but I couldn't afford that, so I had Clonezilla.
Clonezilla was before Ghost. Right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know the timeline, but I didn't have a budget, so I took the Clonezilla option. But we used to create these beautiful golden images, right? And we'd have all that would have Office baked into it, and that's the part that I think kind of has, and that's fine. I think mostly come away from creating amazing golden images, but you still need an image.
You still do.
And what autopilot can give you is like, okay, can't give you the clean image, but it can then lay on top of all the things you want on top of that clean image, but you still need to re-image devices.
Can I use, you mentioned a vanilla image, so you have a clean image from OSD in the cloud. Can I use also my own image into that, so I can make an image, implement applications, and to update that later on probably, but that I deploy my basic image into the full company?
So OSDCloud, it primarily pulls the feature updates from Microsoft, but you can, if you want to put your own image in Azure, it supports pulling it from Azure, so you can authenticate and have it secure in Azure. You can put it on a USB stick and install it that way, or from a URL. If you host your own WIM on the internet, and as long as you give a URL to OSDCloud, it will download it and install it.
But still, it's in the cloud, so you still need an internet connection, and you have a non-connected environment.
You can cache it onto a USB, and everything will work offline. So it handles that. And two cases I've heard. I had a session on OSDCloud yesterday. It was a great feedback, great attendees. Enjoyed being invited here to present that. But one of the attendees brought up to me, look, we don't use it as our primary method, but I keep an OSDCloud flash drive in my backpack just in case. And second, one of the other use cases, that I presented to my old organization is, we try and standardize on the same desktop, the same laptops. But sometimes an executive wants a one-off, and it doesn't make any sense if you're putting your images in CM and you're replicating as this 1-2 gig driver pack globally to support one device. And so sometimes you may need to look at your device counts, and if you have less than 10 in your environment, just don't worry about them, and do OSDCloud for those if you need to re-image. Yep. Odds are you may not even image them in a year, but having the ability to image it whenever you need to.
In case of.
Yeah, in case of.
Brian, you're also speaker on this event. Was that about third-party applications, or was that regarding?
I'm a Windows Update kind of guy. I also work at third-party patching. I have just finished the session now where we're talking about driver and firmware management and the Intune solution, but Windows Update for Business Deployment solution for drivers, which is what Intune is built upon. And then tomorrow I'll do a deep dive into the Windows Update for Business Deployment service itself.
So we're
First
talking-
party updates.
Yeah, first party update. So we're talking about application updates, OSD
Mm-hmm.
deployment, but still we need after that we need to update an OS,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be managed from an Intune perspective,
Mm-hmm.
Windows Update for Business. What about? I will have a recording this afternoon about AutoPatch. That's more your thing, I guess. But Windows Update for Business and AutoPatch, how did that combine with each other?
Okay. So something that I've been saying, and I don't mean to be provocative, but it's true. Intune doesn't have a patching technology, which makes people like, what? It's like, no, Intune doesn't have a patching technology. All that is built upon Windows Update for Business. Windows Update for Business is really a OS feature.
Yep.
And then there's Windows Update for Business, the deployment service, which is a cloud service. And both of those things are owned by not the Intune team, but they're owned by the Windows servicing team. And so Intune doesn't own any of those technologies. They are the first party consumer of those things. So at the root of everything is Windows Update, the cloud service, upon which Windows Update for Business is an OS feature, upon which Windows Update for Business deployment service is a cloud service for enterprises. Right, so that's the bedrock upon which everything else is built. So Intune is built upon is a first-party Microsoft consumer of those services. AutoPatch then is another service built upon those services within Intune. Right, so maybe Lior would hate if I drew this connection, but I think of AutoPatch as a managed service for updating, because it's using the same tools that you could use in Intune, but it's doing it for you. It's abstracting away all of the
Well, it's built upon Windows Update for Business deployment.
right.
Yeah.
But but through Intune, right? Because when you enable AutoPatch, you can see within Intune you see everything. It's all there, right? So and that's because they're both built on that same core, and that's why I always. Again, I don't mean to be provocative say that Intune does patching, but Intune, the technology they're using is Windows Update for Business. It's a separate org, it's a separate thing, and so I always lay that down because I think it helps understand what AutoPatch is. AutoPatch is a managed service to manage Windows Update for Business and Windows Update for Business deployment service settings via Intune.
We have more things coming, more awesome things coming.
I don't doubt it.
AutoPatch.
Yeah, we will do a recording later this afternoon
So-
with the guys and the
Announcements
girls.
will come and stuff like that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
but
let-
I know
But your explanation was great. Seriously,
Yeah.
the way you layered it up, that was, the right concept.
I was doing your job for you.
You would do a good job.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's verify that in the afternoon with the other guys. That will be great, and then we will dive into AutoPatch more and more. But you did a session already about that, about Windows Updates for Business, how to manage updates.
Drivers. So I did drivers tomorrow. I'll do one on just the deployment service.
And drivers is still hard, in some cases.
Yes, easier now.
It's easier now.
Yeah, definitely. So if you need to do that, if you need to go into OSD deployment, look at OSD in the cloud. WinGet is getting more and more within Intune. It's getting better and better. We have third-party application vendors as well, and update drivers. So we touched a lot of things.
We did. Yeah.
So thank you for
Thank you
being
so
here.
much.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
That's
And
awesome.
let's meet up later on. So thank you for now.
All right.
Thank you.